Welcome, I am Hannah, intuitive healer and life purpose mentor, self-made millionaire, and my purpose is to awaken the consciousness of humanity. I help you heal your trauma, deepen your psychic abilities, and live your life purpose on purpose. I am here to remind you who you are. It is time to remember who you are at your core of your innate power and stand up to live that. That spell of unconsciousness is breaking, the curse is lifted, and humanity is remembering in global mass awakening. The day isn't coming, it's already here. We are living it. Let's begin. In the psychic development world, we understand there's a lot of information, right? There's a lot of information from a lot of different sources. It's all a bit convoluted because who do we trust? And here we go, we trust ourselves. So everything that I'm going to share with you guys on here comes from a place of obviously experience. I've, as I said, been doing this for nearly 20 years now on my own with clients. All the personal development things you could possibly do, I've done. And in this space, what I really want to offer is my gifts, my sharing, my knowledge, my wisdom, and obviously live channeled pieces that spirit really wants to say. And that is pretty much, I know, a really big part that I'm really excited about, because the stuff that comes through on live channeling is mind-blowing. Today we are talking about past lives, soul contracts, and the influence that it has on our health. Obviously on relationships is a really big piece, but I really got the message to speak to it on all different levels and how it really interweaves and it really can play a big part in healing, like it really does. Because if there is a relationship pattern that's like repeating and repeating, it's like it can keep us in that cyclic loop until we unhook it from the life before we entered. Now, when we are talking about past lives and soul contracts, karmic patterns, and how that really creates the web of our reality. So when I talk about our reality, I really talk about it's like a web, right? So when I'm working with clients, when I'm working with anyone, it really comes into a place of it. I always see it, I always get shown it as a web. Okay, and so when we can really understand that what we are dealing with in our life is not just it's definitely not a straight line. And if we look at a spider web, this bit connects to this bit and the spider goes round and around and then it comes down, and it's like, interweaving each little notch, right? And then, but when you look at the web, it just looks like, a plate or something, and then it has these lines that come out, and then it connects to these bigger pieces that's holding it into the tree or wherever the web's holding it. So when we're looking at relationship healing, when we're looking at wound healing, when we're looking at trauma releasing, when we're looking at increasing our psychic development, which involves at the start a lot of healing so that you're not carrying all the deep wounds of all the emotions that's been keeping you trapped forever. And when we look at, untangling the web and disentangling from the web, not only is it just our web, but as you know, if you're here, you probably know that in our energy field, we have an aura, okay? An aura is pretty common. People understand what an aura is. If you don't, it's the energy field around your body, and it's like a big bubble. Yeah, if you imagine a big oval-shaped cocoon bubble around you, that's your aura. It's like the space when you're standing in the supermarket line and I'm laughing because I don't know if this happens to everyone or if this is just me. But I was standing in the supermarket line, as an example, or any line, and I'm just doing my thing, and then all of a sudden I don't even hear them, but I feel somebody walk up, and I'll immediately step forward because they have stepped into my aura. And just like some people, like most of the time, I usually just take a step to the side or pretend to look around at the shelf so I can move back and actually see who that is. It's a bit like it's a boundary. Right? It's definitely a boundary. It's an energetic boundary. And it's really important because, and a lot of people, maybe you wouldn't feel that if you haven't developed your psychic senses, if you haven't developed your aura, your strengthening of your energy, right? And that comes with time. All these things that I'm talking about definitely comes with time and practice. But the more you practice them, the better you get, of course. Now, when we look at this web this aura, this, you know, energy field that we have around us. When we start delving into, you know, energy healing and relationship healing, and I think what I might do is I might keep this particular past life and soul contract psychic development class based on relationships. Let's keep this one to relationships specifically. Yeah. So this, like, you know, aura, when somebody steps into your energy, you know, that 1.5 meter span around you, and it makes you aware, right? It's a spatial orientation. Yeah, having your spatial awareness and orientation is really important to understand your energy and who's encroaching on your energy. So how does this relate to past lives and soul contracts? Well, understanding, and specifically relationships for this topic, understanding past lives and understanding soul contracts and understanding how does that even go through the tests of time? How does that move through these layers of the ethers of the sands of time? Well, as we know, reality is not real. Our memory's even real. Our past lives even real. How deep do you want to take this? Because I have a whole reality check, let's call it. A whole reality check on memory, even on trauma memories, on fun memories, on memory in general. It's a whole nother topic. So I'm just going to call them reality checks, that I could do a whole class on that itself, okay? So I'll leave that one there. So when we're looking at a relationship issue, let's say like, oh my God, I left that relationship and now I'm in this relationship and now it's the same stuff that I'm dealing with. Or you'll be in a relationship and you'll be like, I thought we dealt with this already. What's going on? Why is the same pattern coming up? And whilst relationships are deep and intricate, something that I see common across all the clients that I've had over the years is that when somebody is leaving an unhealthy, toxic relationship, I don't really like using that word, but when somebody is leaving an unhealthy relationship pattern or environment, okay, it could be a work environment or it could be a relationship that you're leaving. Or if you're in a relationship, it's the same pattern that just seems to, like, you get stuck in this vibration, right? And this is just the way the relationship is. And hey, there's nothing wrong with the relationship if you're happy in it, right? I see a lot of clients come to me and there's like things, it's not like quote unquote the best relationship, but I'm like, as long as you're happy in it and you can find peace in it, then good, right? Learn to be happy with what you have. If you're not happy, change yourself. If nothing changes in the relationship, change the relationship, right? Lots of processes to go through before you choose to leave. But anyway, it's again a whole nother scenario. So when we're specifically looking at the past lives, so when we have any sort of relationship, and there's lots of reasons why you're not able to let go of a relationship. I do have an audio, do I stay or do I go, about that. And I do have another one on how to let it go. When we're dealing specifically with past lives, when a relationship is stuck or in a cyclic loop of a pattern, what we are dealing with is, you know, and the pieces is there's a few layers that we get to before we deal with the past life. And how do we know which one is coming up? Or do we need to heal past life first? Or is it something else? That is really determined on you as a person, how much spiritual work or personal development you've done prior to diving into the past life and checking these specific layers. Now, when we also talk about past lives, there's also interdimensional pieces, okay? Number one, healing is not a straight line. When we look at a spider web, we can see all the intricate connections, okay? So let's use the spider web analogy and how many like little connections on their web they've gone around to build. I just was watching one the other day because I'm really clear of it. I was like, oh, look, it's actually building and it's going around into the circle. And I was like looking up at the tree and it's like, how does it go all the way up there? I nearly walked into it, so I was having a look. Thank you, spider. Spider totem is with us as we untangle and disentangle from our past lives. So the layers that we look at is, obviously you've got your current issue in your current relationship. And then you have we're going to ask the question, where has this pattern shown up in any of my previous life? Now that also means like not just past life, like previous relationships before you were in this relationship, and then also your childhood. Who does this person remind me of, or where does this pattern show up in previous relationships in my life? When you ask that question, it will take you somewhere. It could be a past life. It could be a memory from a past life comes up. Once you get good at your psychic development, you will understand how your past lives are speaking to you, and I'll tap into that in a moment. When you can make sure you check previous relationship, oh yeah, this is a pattern that I've experienced in a previous relationship before, or it keeps happening in this current relationship. Then you can also check your childhood. So childhood wounding needs to be looked at and healed and cleared as well to help release the current pattern. However, if you've done a lot of childhood work, if you've done a lot of healing, past life is then where we go to. When we hit down, and I call it this, it's almost like 3 layers: current, childhood or previous relationships, depending, how old you are, and then past life. We go before we were born. Then there's sort of 2 pieces that past life can stem off into. There's your current DNA blood generational lineage, and then there is your soul DNA lineage. So we can start to see how the web goes quite deep. Now, which one do we heal? Which one do we travel? How do I know which one's correct? So know that any information that you are given when you step into any sort of healing work is perfect and is exactly what you need in this moment right now. When we look at which, is it going in soul DNA lineage, or is it going in our blood human current family lineage, that pattern clearing will become apparent to you, and whatever is shown to you is just what's important to heal right now. Okay? So when we are traveling these different past life lineages, and they'll come up at different times, this pattern, let's say in your current relationship, you're usually with somebody that you've had many lifetimes with. Let's be real. I know your soul recognizes mine, and I recognize your soul. I think we've had past lives together. It's kind of a thing. I know you for a long time, even though I just met you. There's a connection. And in that connection, we understand that we've had lives together. Now, relationship healing, when dealing with past lives and soul contracts, in my past life meditation, it's about a 20-minute journey. I channeled it from the Triple Goddess, came through so strongly in 2018, and I channeled this past life healing and integration meditation. And it's a complete journey where you're shown obviously how you died, so it can be confronting. And then you're shown the contracts and what played out in this past life and any times prior. Then you're given an opportunity to rewrite the contract. And then we work on the healing and the belief systems, and then we come back to now. Some past life journeys only show you how you died, and I think, well, what's the point of that? Past life exploration is awesome. It's fun. It grows your consciousness. You understand so much about yourself and your paths and how you've ended up here and who you are and your lineages. And I think it's really important in a stage of our psychic development and our spiritual journey of awakening, 100%. Like, if you're drawn to past lives and you can't get enough of it, please know you're healing something so deep in your soul, and you're gaining an incredible intuitive and psychic development gifts. Okay? Fine-tuning your senses when you're following your intuition about what you're being guided to do. So when you, when we do this part, whenever you do a past life, so my past life meditation is available on my website. It's $15. It's a journey. There's an entire training to go with it. So you can use that, or obviously work with a practitioner, but it's so important that when you're doing a past life with a practitioner that they don't just take you there and leave you there. I had a client come to me and she'd been stuck in a past life for 3 years because a practitioner took her through to a past life and quote unquote left her there. And she'd been stuck in this trauma for 3 years and she was really nervous to do my meditation, and she did it, and within 20 minutes she's like, oh my God, I've been living with that for 3 years, and it was like the first day and 20 minutes into the meditation and she'd just healed something after 3 years. And this is why I train my healers in trust your intuition in a specific way, because there's so much, there's ethics to do with, you know, these pieces, and really understanding that taking somebody back to a past life and seeing how they died is really traumatic. If you are going to just show them that, it's like there's a purpose to doing that. So we need to rewrite the contracts. We need to understand what happened. And as we rewrite that contract, then it untangles the web that comes all the way back through the others of time now. Once you work on that depth of past life and you've done, say, the meditation or worked with a trained healer that can do the complete process, any of my healers obviously have that, certified. So when we work in that way, then we can really untangle, you've healed it at its core, so back in the others of time. And as that has now transformed, that energy of that, number one, the timeline, and the thread, the energetic thread, or I look at it like a cotton thread, or it could be a rope, it could be a chain. What does it appear to you? This thread through the others of time that connects you guys together, right? Sometimes that's relevant information, you know, like obviously a chain, you know, but it really symbolizes, what does a chain mean to you? Does it mean slavery? Does it mean entrapment? What does a cotton thread mean to you? It's like, oh, it's nice, it's soft, it's cotton, like, you know, but is it, or is it a fishing line that's going to cut you like wire? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many different scenarios about what you're shown in the symbolism of when you do any sort of meditation, let alone past life work. And the interpretation of what you receive is so important, because I could sit here and tell you that a cotton thread is soft and gentle in love, but actually it's like a piece of wire that's going to cut you. But that's your interpretation, and that's what's most important. The client's interpretation is always most important, because it's their journey, and this is where, as a healer, we can help them interpret and understand these pieces, and obviously guide them through and make sure the process is complete properly. But it's so important, and this is where I train my healers in trust intuition, to understand all these different pieces so that you can guide the client to understand what those symbols are being shown to that client for that particular reason. So when we look at coming out of the past life meditation, that thread through the others of time is now dissolved, okay? There can be a process that happens on obviously a physical level that now will start unraveling in physical reality. So some people say to me, I fell asleep in the meditation, should I do it again? And I want to say, I probably wouldn't. Some meditations you can do all the time, doesn't matter. But something like a past life is quite deep, so we want to let it integrate. Hence why it's called healing and integration meditation. Integration is so important, because as we start dealing with psychic trauma, as we start dealing with metaphysical energy, through all the layers of time, and you're affecting somebody's personality and psyche, you're taking them through deep transformation of their person and allowing their soul to come through. It is so important to understand that consciousness, when awakening, is integration is required. If integration spaces do not happen, and ultimately what it means is integration is time to let it process and let it simmer. Let it, like it's what I call letting the soil settle. You'll hear me say letting the soil settle and letting it simmer, and integrating. Reality breaks. Those 4 things mean the same thing. That means let it settle. Give it space, it means. Don't do the meditation straight away again. No, wait a week. If you're not a seasoned veteran of this work, wait a week before we do any meditations again. Well, the past life meditation again, that's specifically what we're talking about. Why? Because we just changed something back through the others of time, and we must let that pass through vibrational physical densities to allow that to now unravel. When we're dissolving a pattern that has been there for a long time, there is, as I said, an integration process to let that now ripple into physical reality. And it's also allowing this space of the physical changes to take effect. Sometimes we need to take action on something. Sometimes the energetic work we have done will make things change in physical reality straight away or start to happen. And especially from the time you did the meditation to about 3 weeks. You want to give it about a 3-week window. It's important when I teach, and a good practice, I guess, to get into is when you do a meditation like that is quite deep work, you want to write it down on your calendar, okay? Write it on your calendar, past life meditation. You should be writing your meditations down in your sacred journal anyway, because I train you like that. It's so important. I did a video on that, so you can ask me for that. Why that is really important for that. I won't go into that now. So when you write it on your calendar and then you kind of forget that you did the past life meditation, then your reality starts shifting and you're like, why is all this happening? Like, oh my God, everything's falling apart, or like big changes are happening, or that person who was bothering me at my workplace suddenly upped and left. And then you're like, oh, that's right, I did the past life meditation last week. Oh, that's interesting. And you didn't do anything different. You just kept turning up to work and doing your thing. And we can see how now this contract is finished playing out, that then reality starts shifting. So this work is very powerful and transformative and on a soul contractual level. So let's talk about soul contracts and how they play into it. Relationship. You meet someone new. Oh my God, you're my twin flame. You're my soulmate. Oh my God, this person's my soulmate. I'm going to be with them forever. I love you forever. Oh my gosh, you're everything I've ever asked for. I wrote it down in my dream book. Oh my God, it's just like everything is showing up. It's the best. Who's ever had these experiences? And then you fall madly in love and you're like, I love this person forever. This is my forever person. And then after a while you realize it's the honeymoon phase, and then things fall apart, and then you realize it's actually not in alignment. And then you go through this process of trying to release them and you're like, what is going on? And there's so many pieces here. Number one, you may have had a soul contract in a past life. You might have had a past life, just like we talked about. And then soul contracts can be, sure, like if we look at today's world, there is literally documents that you have written down on paperwork to get married, for example. Like there is actually contracts that you sign when you enter into a marriage. Let's take this for a little out of the box thinking right now. If you have signed any documents in previous lifetimes, okay, and let's remember that, in the last 50 to 100 years, you would have still been living in this dimensional reality in the 1800s or the early 1900s, depending on how old you are listening to this. And so, maybe not long ago, you still were experiencing this current reality and dimension. Now, there's a little bit of a clause to that, because did you actually incarnate in this dimension? Lots of questions, right? Lots of pieces to consider. But the other important piece about a soul contract is any contracts that you've signed on like legal documents or house or finances or like anything, right? How many documents do we sign? Like signing your kids into school or whatever it is. I don't know. Like there's so many contracts that we sign almost all the time, and now voice ID sign all the time, that it's kind of like you can see the web here of all of these pieces is actually quite deep and intricate. Now, this can feel overwhelming, sure, but when you are dealing with an issue, whether it's in your current relationship, whether it's at your workplace, whether it's dealing with your finances, whether it's dealing with buying or selling houses, whether it's, well, I don't know, name your issue, name your contract. These pieces are so important, hence why I said to you 3 important questions. Where has this situation shown up in my past previous? Where does this feel a familiar feeling, person, pattern, experience? Where has this shown up before, right? And we trace it back through our lifetime, back to childhood. Once you work on, oh, that's right, that situation that happened 10 years ago, right, that's familiar. Okay, repeating pattern. Okay. Anything familiar feeling comes to mind in my childhood. Now, you might not get an answer straight away, or you might, right? You might be highly in tune, and this is what happens when we start asking a question. We don't technically need to meditate to receive the answer, but if the answer doesn't come straight away, you've asked the question, and the brain will always try and find an answer, and so does the universe respond. Now, a week later, you might be speaking to your mum, and they randomly tell you this story about what happened in your childhood, about this situation and this event, and you moved house or whatever happened, and you're like, I didn't even ask for that, and actually I needed to know that information. Thank you very much. And you can see how you will always get the question answered, okay? So when we are looking at contracts and soul contracts, they can be from, oh my God, you're my soulmate, I love you forever, I've loved you through the eternities of time, I just know it. I can feel it in my soul, in my heart. I am going to be with you forever. You know how they say words cast spells? Be mindful of what you're saying. Yeah, we know that rabbit hole, don't we? The spelling piece, the abracadabra. What words are we spelling and saying consciously and unconsciously all the time? Just going to call it the word spelling rabbit hole because we could go down there. When you say to somebody, I love you, you're my soulmate, I'm going to love you forever, whether you get married or not, you just created a contract with that person. If the relationship does not last and you end it or it ends and you do not rewrite the codings of what happened in that relationship, and maybe you don't even remember you said that, but you know that was something that was like that, it's important to take a ceremony with yourself. Could be as simple as a meditation sitting, could be a journal session with yourself, and say, from this moment forth, I now release any soul and verbal and soul contracts that I made with this person in this lifetime and any previous lifetimes. Signed, dated, thank you very much. Renege, can rip it up gently, put it in your fireplace, throw it in the bin, bury it, send it out into the waters, whatever. Many ways you can release it. Could be as simple as that. You could do an elaborate ceremony if you really wanted to, but it can be as simple as saying to yourself out loud right now, it could be with a particular person or all people that I have, little disclaimer, we're saying it right now with me, so just be mindful, stuff might start unraveling, because the thing is that with certain levels of consciousness, this stuff happens automatically. We don't need to go into ceremony. We don't need to take plant medicine. We don't need to do anything because you're just on. Like as a sensitive healer, intuitive, psychic medium, you're receiving information all the time, okay? This stuff is real time, all time. This is who you are. You're an ancient blooded healer. You're one of a kind. This is who you are. This is your gift. This is why we must hone it because we're on all the time. With this particular person or this group of people or all these people that I've had this pattern with, I now choose to release any soul contracts, any verbal, soul, intuitive, metaphysical, through the timelines, contracts that I've made with them that are keeping me trapped, bound, held down, or in a certain vibrational frequency. I choose to release that now. And so it is. You might start burping, coughing, crying, suddenly feel stuff in your physical body, shivers, all the things. Or you might feel nothing at all. Then, next week later, you get phone calls and messages and emails or whatever out of the blue. You bump into them out of the blue. Oh, and by the way, that does not mean that it's so meant to be and you're meant to be with them. This is part of the release of the energetics, and that's why I said wait 3 weeks before you say it, quote unquote, didn't work, and or let it integrate, let the soil settle. So when I say the soil settle is about you, like the soil, letting the soil settle analogy is, you know, when we've got a garden or a veggie garden or whatever, and we're growing all our crops and then all these weeds come up, or you just tend to it all the time. with me, I would love to, but I choose to put my creativity into my business. So sometimes there's a lot of weeds that come up. And so I go out and pull all the weeds out. And then depending on the crop and the plants and the actual garden itself, you might rip the whole thing out and then redo the soil and let it settle and then put the new seeds in. And then you're going to grow and germinate and tend to these seeds and bring it to the new crop. So when we are ripping out the weeds, that takes a bit of time, and then we're going to change the soil, and then we're going to do all the things that I probably don't even, I'm unaware of because I'm not a farmer. And then we put the seeds in. Do we leave it a couple of days or something? Do we let the soil settle? Regardless, once the seeds are in there, we let the soil settle. And there is new life germinating, whether we are actually tending to it or not. So we let the soil settle. When we do any of this work, it is so much more powerful than we realize, and sometimes we forget that. When you enter into a course, a program, a training, and it doesn't seem like anything's working or all this stuff starts happening at once and you're like, what's happening? And then you sort of forget you're doing this training. You sort of forget you're into this vortex. And you're like, oh, that's right, I'm actually doing a lot of inner work right now. No wonder reality is starting to ripple and change. So it's really important to remember and understand that you're doing this work. We just actually rewrote and released some contracts. So just be aware of that moving forward for the next few weeks to a couple of months. 3 weeks, 3 months, really important dates. 3 months, 3 years. So when we move forward into this in our new rewritten past lives and soul contracts and how that affects our reality is obviously going to be different for every person, for every experience, for every different part of your going through your reality, because every single person's relationships and situations and events and past lives are different. Is there anything else that I need to say specifically on past lives and soul contracts? Oh yes, so let's talk about how they affect health. I think that was the actual title of this training, of this class. So let me have a specific look here to remember the exact title. Past lives and soul contracts. The influence they hold on keeping you in cyclic loops and repetitive karmic patterns that are making and keeping you sick. Now, this is a big one. So a person to leave a relationship, they have to be ready. Nobody leaves a relationship until they're ready. You can't force someone, you can't tell someone. It's like trying to tell somebody wake up. You just can't do it. Nobody's ready before their time. Don't waste your energy. Be a leading example. Now, when we look at people who don't listen to their intuition, regardless of whether we're dealing with past life soul contracts or relationships or when people do not listen to their intuition, they will get sick. Period. Let's keep it on the relationship topic because this is a whole nother reality check story in itself. So when we're specifically looking at ignoring your intuition about a particular relationship that you know you need to leave, but you can't, or you're not ready, or whatever the thing is going on. Again, so many different factors. Every person is different. I've worked with many clients over the years. I've seen many scenarios. When we're, let's say, still in a relationship with a partner, with a pattern, with a person, with an environment, and there is a way that we can leave. There is a way that we can walk away from the relationship, and we don't. Number one, we go unconscious. We become more and more unconscious, okay? And we do that as a protective mechanism to our own self because we're not listening to our intuition. We become unconscious to our own intuition. When we are not listening and following it, we become unconscious to it. We try and suppress it. We're like, I can't hear this right now. As soon as we push it down and suppress it and go unconscious to it, it doesn't go away, but physical illness in the body starts to occur because it is trying to heal. It is trying to become conscious. Your soul path, your soul mission, your soul alignment, whatever you want to call it, has a unique blueprint and purpose and timeline and all the things. So when you're trying to ignore it and you're either suppressing it with food or addiction of choice or going unconscious, right? People get sick because pushing that down it's hitting your physical body now, right? It's not just in the metaphysical aura going, hey, and you can sense that little tapping on the shoulder and signs here and there, and then you ignore it and then you start to get really sick and something happens in your body. What's happening in those scenarios is really like the suppression cannot be suppressed. Like, you have a purpose, you have a mission, and you're not listening to it. Now, the metaphysical symptoms showing up in your particular body obviously also is another reality check, whole live stream, whole podcast that we could talk about here. So when we look at, like, as I always say, the fastest way to heal anything, number one, listen, not just listen, act on your intuition. When you do that, you will immediately start to feel better. When you do that, you'll immediately start to heal. Now, it doesn't mean that's easy, but you will start to feel better and stronger the more you start acting on what your intuition is guiding you to do. So when we look at when you have an opportunity to leave a situation and you don't, then you're suppressing it, and so your soul is still trying to speak, and that comes through illness. Hello. I've worked with many, many clients that this suppression and the metaphysical meaning of what is going on, they're like, oh, that makes so much sense. Oh, that makes so much sense. And there's a difference between acting on it and just understanding that that's what's going on. We can do many things to heal it, but the fastest way to heal it is to act on what your intuition is actually guiding you to do. So when we look at moving forward, like when you have an opportunity to leave a situation and you don't, and you've done the past life work, sometimes we need to leave the situation and then do the past life work so we're not repeating those patterns. Sometimes doing the past life work and energetic work helps us leave those situations. What comes first, chicken or the egg, it really depends on the person and the situation and what's required. When we look at the illness itself, that is just another way to keep you there also. Meaning, like, are you going to leave? Oh, now I can't. And what's actually happening is, maybe if this happens, then my needs will get met in this relationship. And then finally, I will be seen, heard, understood, and loved. But we know that's not how we heal wounds. Only we can heal wounds. Only we can release these past life patterns that are edging back through the ethers of time. Only we can. And only when we're ready does our soul bring the right resources, teachers, courses, situations, events, tools to be able to do that. So if you're here, you've found your way here because you are ready to break these patterns. But it's not easy. Sometimes it can happen overnight and everything shifts and you're ready. Why? Because you're ready. Other times you're like, oh, this information makes so much sense, and the web needs to adjust and you need to become stronger to be ready to fully make those changes. So don't judge yourself if you're at any of those points in time, because it's all a process. Awakening might happen in an instant, and realizations and reality shifts and instances happen very quickly. But also, what happens is it takes time as we let the soil settle to make changes. Just like I say, to move house doesn't happen overnight. It's an entire process, from the first thought you think about moving, to looking for places, to, if you're purchasing, going through the process of finance or having the cash, to finding the perfect home, to signing all the contracts, to then having the move-in date, to then packing up your house and physically going there and unpacking and settling into the new environment. And if you're in a new town, then finding all your new routines. That process can take, when did you start thinking about it? a month, probably a bit longer than that, 3 months, 12 months, releasing patterns that are reneged all the way back, and I want to say nedged, whatever that's, hedged back in the ethers of time. The integration and unraveling takes time. So be okay with the process of whether you're moving fast or whether you're moving slow. There is no right or wrong. There's only what you're ready for, because your purpose is pushing you to a certain direction, and through all of these experiences, you're becoming a certain person that can hold the capacity for your unique life purpose. That is important. That is so important. So trust your path. Trust the way that you are moving and on this way, and trust where your intuition is guiding you to the correct healers, to the correct resources, to the correct integration breaks, the reality breaks, because along the way, you're becoming somebody who's going to live a better life. And that is why you wanted to do this in the first place, because you knew there was more. There could be a better version of you that you've chosen, that you're emerging into. I trust that you put a lot of pieces of the puzzle together and that you enjoyed that. You can find me on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Send me a message. I am Reality Awareness. Say hi. Let me know how listening to this episode helped you. Share it if you know it can help someone. And remember, you are your purpose. I love you.